Hello, everyone. I'm Shelly Dressel. I channel the universal light beings, the goddess of creation, multiple different energies. A couple of nights ago, I did my channeled meditation with the goddess of creation, and during it, she was teaching each one of us how to work with energy. And one of the things that we were working with was Hurricane Erin, that is out in the Atlantic. And you'll see it's gone from a category 5 to a 2. So not saying only us. I know there have been thousands of people that have been working on it, but it's just showing you that you can have an impact when you work with energy. So here's one of the things that happened that has me curious. At one point, when we were working with the energies and we were kind of just pulling it all back down into Gaia so that it could be diffused into Gaia and not into something that made, the hurricane, I said, oh, there's Poseidon. And it was very interesting to me that because I think I've worked with Poseidon maybe one other time or something like that, but certainly not consistently. So that's what got me to thinking about this. And I wanted to do a ULB mini, and I want to channel Bentia, and I'd like her to connect in with Poseidon and see, is there more that was going on with that hurricane than what we realized? Are there other things that are going on? So here we go. Greetings. It is I, Bentia. I come to you at this time to speak about the earth, to speak about the planet, to speak about transitions, and to speak about energy. Energy is in everything that's around you. You yourself are filled up with many different forms of energy. Your house has an energy around it. Your interaction with other people are an energy, a form of energy. So everything in life is energy. And therefore, everything in your life is about your relationship to that energy, meaning how are you responding? If there are things going on around you and you find yourself getting sucked into an argument or getting pulled down into negativity, well, that's a reaction to energy. If you find that there are things around you, maybe you're not feeling so good one day, and then you're around certain people or watching a video or something, and suddenly you feel so much better. That's a reaction to energy. So the energy doesn't have to be just physically around you. It can be something that you see in a video. It can be something that you consciously tap into, no matter where it may be. As the earth is moving through this final stage of the ascension process that's going on, there are massive amounts of old energy that have got to be released. When you think about it, you were stuck in that third dimensional energy with the control, manipulation, warfare, anger, it just all the nastiness that goes along with it. And that was here for thousands of years. And therefore, it was entrained into the energy of the earth plane. You have heard us speak about it more times than one, that with these various earthquakes, these various floods, these various storms, things that seemingly come up out of nowhere, we feel that many, many times they are there as a means of clearing out the cellular energy in Gaia. And this is one of the things that was associated with Hurricane Erin. Now, for those of you that don't know, this is off the coast of the United States, and it's in the Atlantic Ocean. And at one point, it was a Category 5 hurricane. And what they mean by Category 5 is that the wind speeds were of a certain level. It is currently, today, 2 days later, down to Category 2. So it's out there. It's still doing its thing, but it's not as bad as what it was. Now, many, many storms on their own will just peter out. So, I'm sure there'll be people saying, yeah, well, storms always peter out. But this is one that during the teleconference, we all consciously worked with. And meaning we, the angels, the ULBs, we were all part of that, the meditation with the goddess of creation, because we knew that this was something that was going to be multiple levels of communication or work with one another. So that's why when I say we, I was absolutely there, as was Albayan and Crystalia. And there were many, many, many light beings that were working with the energy of the storm. So at one point, the goddess, in looking down, says, oh, there's Poseidon. And so this is what has Shelly in the background saying, Can we talk to Poseidon? Is there a message that he has to give? Why did he show himself when the vast majority of the time that he does not? So let me just say, before we connect with Poseidon and see if he has a message to give, that there are many, many different things happening around the world. The vast majority are actual natural reactions that are due to temperatures, changes in the planet, things like that. However, frequently they have been either enhanced or made worse or manipulated, sometimes by the nefarious ones and sometimes by the white hats, as you call them. And the reason for that is they know that there are things that have to be cleaned out. And when it's anything to do with the white hats, of course, they do the very least amount of human life or detriment to the humanity. That being said, the nefarious ones, they don't care. The more they can injure and cause problems with, the better, the happier they are. Okay, I digress. But anyway, so you have seen recently that there have been many changes in the whales, in the dolphins. Those are two ancient species that have held the DNA and held the consciousness from previous times, and they are associated with Sirius B. They have been no longer as needed on the earth plane as more and more of humanity is raising its vibration and in a conscious manner tapping into what they were holding the frequency for. So this is another reason why you will see things changing in the ocean. Now, I'm not referring to the many, many, many other species that are also out in the ocean, but the dolphins and the whales being the predominant and the dolphins working with the whales, they have been absolutely a part of the ascension, holding the frequency when it was very low. And every time you hear them talking and you hear that the tones and the sounds that they make, what they're doing is they're toning to set a frequency that is then transmitted through the water and the waves, and then it goes out into anything that it comes into contact with. So they have been a very, very, very important part of this ascension. And you might see things transitioning because of the fact that humanity is now holding that vibration and frequency themselves. Okay, I'm going to get quiet for a moment here. I had already reached out to, knowing that this was coming up, I'd already reached out to Poseidon and asked him to come in and be present, and here he is. Greetings. I am the one that is known as Poseidon. I have other names that have been given to me over the years, but I am of the oceans. I am of the waters. The waterways on the earth plane are not at all what you think they are. The land masses of the planet are not what you think they are. Everything has been given to you in such a way as to create a perception that at some point it was due to a lack of expanded consciousness. So therefore, this is the way they thought it was. But you are going to find in the years to come that things in terms of where the land masses are located, the actual size of the land masses, the flatness of the earth versus the circular energy of the earth. There are so many different things that are going to come out. There are still many that have that belief that the earth is actually flat. And when you think of the earth in terms of planes of existence, like you reach in and you take a slice out where all of this dimension is living, then indeed the perception is that it is flat. You will see the land masses this way, and it is all in that one perception. But when you disconnect from that and you look at it from the whole, you have other dimensions that go upward, other dimensions that go down, and the energy of it all is created into a sphere. And this is why people have that sense of a sphere. And you can come down into the center of it. That which is what you call Atlantis is considered the center of the earth. And at the time that they went into the center, that was when they were there on the surface and the vibration dropped, in part because of Atlantis and what Atlantis was doing. But there are multiple different things that were taking place at that time. And it was decided that Lemuria would go and be in the center of the earth in their various civilizations. They don't have just one civilization there. They move around to different, what you might call towns, or what you refer to as countries or different land masses. That is what Lemuria is. And it holds that very, very deeply spiritual energy as the core energy at center, or the core essence of this entire planet. Now, I was associated with Atlantis. Atlantis is that time frame that came after Lemuria. And Atlantis was around for several thousand years. It wasn't like 100,000 years or that high of a degree. But I have been living in one incarnation or another from the time in which I came to this earth plane. I came not directly from Sirius B, but I came from a planet that was in the universe, and I was the direct intention that I would be holding and anchoring the energies of spirituality that were associated and around the time frame of Atlantis. There are so many things, and I'm not even aware of everything, but there's so much that is portrayed about Atlantis that just makes me laugh. But I am known as having a fin, as indeed I do. But if I choose to walk on land, I walk on land with feet. So I can transition into whatever is needed. Now, that which you call Atlantis, it is very difficult to have it associated with what you have considered as a part of your earth plane right now. Many people are saying that Antarctica was Atlantis, and indeed there is a deep link from Antarctica into Atlantis. That Antarctica that you think in that part of the planet, and that ice shell that you see when you look at it, is an overlay, and it was placed there as a means of protection for those. It's one of the indirect alignments that take you into the inner earth. So, two things. Because we already can hear people saying, oh, I'm going to go down. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to go look. You will not survive, because it is programmed at a particular vibration and frequency that people do not survive. I know that it was taken over by those you call the nefarious ones. After World War II, they came from a place called Germany, and they worked with other ETs, and they created a space there that was isolated and anchored with particular energies that they were able to survive, but they did not come anywhere near the core. They did not come anywhere near that which is what we call Atlantis. The Atlantis, as you know it, is in that part of the planet. It's not like it slid around the top to get down there. It went down through the center of the energy of the earth, and it anchored in that part of the world. Now, I will be the first to admit that Atlantis started off one way, very, very similar to the energies of Lemuria, filled with mysticism, filled with what you call magical abilities, filled with people that worked cohesively with one another. And it was only over time that it was infiltrated with the reptilians that came from out in the universe, that it was infiltrated with those that came from multiple different, not only universes, but planets, but they came in there and they said, with all of this magical ability, let's see how we can make it work for us. And oh, the arguments I had. There was a time when I was actually overtaken and my powers were stripped away, and I was not able to protect the people in the way that I did. So during that time, there were others that stepped up for me, but I would say that is when Atlantis was taken over by the nefarious ones, and they're the ones that brought the downfall, because number one, they started experimentation on humanity. And we were always here to treasure humanity and to recognize it for the gift that it was, not only to this planet, but to the universe. You were a blend of multiple different species, you could say, that happened even before Lemuria. And so you were a gift to the universe. And my job as the protector of Atlantis was to protect humanity. So when they suddenly brought in these people that were abusing humanity and taking advantage of humanity and experimenting on humanity, it went against everything that I knew. And it created quite an impact on the gods, as you spoke of them. Sometimes they call them the Greek gods. Sometimes there's multiple different levels of what you call gods. But we were basically the ones that were gifted with the ability to protect this planet. And so that was a very, very, very hard time. That was when the dragons left. That was when many of the sprites left. That's when many of the different species that had cohabitated hand in hand with one another, when they chose to leave. Now then, I'm going to jump forward to where we are now, but I did want to give you that information because I know that many of you have been asking about it and questioning. So when you jump forward to what we were doing right now and why I showed up, within the oceans are way deeper than you have any conscious perception of. Number one, in part because of the different dimensions. You can move through one dimension and you can move into another dimension. And it's literally as if it transports you to a completely different space. There, if you just stay in the dimension in which everybody is living on the surface of this planet and you follow it down, that will take you to another place. But that which is underneath what you call the Atlantic Ocean is somewhat where Atlantis was. When Atlantis sank, there were people that went to Egypt. That was the number one location that people moved into. But there were many others that went out to other parts of the planet, some down to what you call Australia, some north to what you call Russia and the North Pole. And they scattered to all parts. And it created a massive, vast, how do I call it? Open space when the continent first sank. And like, if you think about that, it goes down. The water didn't just immediately come in. It's like it went down in such a way that it created a vortex, and then all of that water and energy came back over the top of it, and it shifted, and it created permanent portals and permanent ways in which people can move in and out of the waters. It did have an impact on all parts of the planet. It was incredibly significant. When Lemuria sank, as they call it, which was going into the center of the earth, it was very transitional and it was not traumatic because everybody knew it was coming. And it did end up actually going quicker than people anticipated. But Atlantis, we were in the process of working with ways in which to make it amenable for people to be able to be safe, we were trying to take back that which was involved in humanity. And it ended up being a nuclear explosion that took out the continent, that took out much of humanity, and that the intention was it would also take out a lot of the nefarious ones, which it did, but they were able to come back in. And but that's when consciousness of the planet dropped significantly, and it created this space that you have been working within for the last 26,000 years. But now we're here, we're moving forward, and this time of ascension is something that is healing the way Atlantis ended, and it is bringing forth that which was the magnificence of Atlantis. And it was actually longer than 2,000 years. It was probably more like 10,000 years, something like that. But anyway, I would say the glory or the wonderful aspect of Atlantis was around for about 6,000 to 8,000 years, and then maybe only 2,000 of the nefarious taking over, which goes to show you how quickly depending on how they do it, how quickly you can bring down something that was truly beautiful and magnificent. So we are clearing out the energy of the nefarious ones. We are clearing out that old ancient control and abuse of humanity. And as we clear it out from here where Atlantis was, it is going to go down through the time-space reality as you know it. And it is going to clear out different places in your now reality, in your now consciousness. So this is a very pivotal time on the earth. If you have things, either your childhood or past lives that come up for you, now is the time to just be in unconditional love. First and foremost for yourself, but mostly in the way in which you look at humanity and you look at everything else. Because the only thing to permanently transition the nefarious deeds and what happened on the earth is love. That is the only way. And for people to get back into their spirituality, which is that magic within you, which is that ability to be way more than the human that you are, that you think you are. Because humans are massively evolved individuals, and humans have a great many abilities of which you know nothing, or you know just a fraction. So open up to the realization that you are so much more than what you think you are. And that there will be new relationships that come out with the waters. And you will be hearing of my mer people, and you will be hearing of others that live within the ocean. When we speak about dimensions, I know it's hard for you to imagine, but there are still places that are inside the ocean that it's like they're pockets that are filled with air that people can breathe. And so there are those of you that can go to these places and you can live there, and you have been. It's not just the mer people that live within the water. But we are continuously clearing it out. And that hurricane that I was called forth to speak, to get your attention, was one that was not only clearing out the energy and the low vibrational frequency of humanity, but it was clearing out remnants of Atlantis, remnants of the control and manipulation of Atlantis. And so all is well as we move forward. Thank you for this opportunity. Ansaluia. It is I, Bentia, and I am back with you again. I am very much a part of Lemuria, so as Poseidon was speaking about Lemuria and the time in Atlantis, I too worked with many, many of the people in Atlantis, and he's absolutely right. I confirm that Atlantis was one of the most beautiful times in the history of this planet to live upon the earth. It was filled with peace. It was filled with very accelerated and advanced society. And it was brought down through betrayal. It was brought down through abuse of power. It was brought down through many of those things that are happening now. Had an initiative back during Atlantis. It was where they began to make fake people, as you call them. Some they called cloning, some they called, they had other means in which they were doing this. But you cannot replace a human being with a soul, because it is your soul and it is that blend of the genetics within you that make you the magnificent species that you are. Thank you for sharing this time with us. Continue to send the light into every situation that you see around you. Continue to open to that deepening self-love and self-respect and self-awareness that is within you. This time is really accelerating now. And some days you may find that, a month has passed in the time of a day. But you will look back in as little as 6 months to a year, and it feels as if a much greater time than 1 year has passed. So you are here. You are all well beloved by those of us that are working with you from the non-physical or from the different vibrations. And we all appreciate everything that you are doing. Thank you for this opportunity. Ansaluia.